Hello, and welcome back to the Breadwinner Podcast. I'm your host, Caroline, and this is the show where we talk all things sourdough business. We talk about building a thriving, profitable microbakery from your home, and some of us are moving toward a small commercial space. We talk all things how to build a bakery that serves your family, serves your community, leaves you profitable, and doesn't bring you out. Today's episode is a little behind the scenes, a little reflective, and I'm sharing my thoughts from week one in my new bakery space. So 1 week ago, we finally got all of my equipment moved over from my house to my new bakery. And it was a limbo situation a little bit where I needed to still use all of that at home until the moment when I didn't, until I could move it on over. And so 1 week ago today, borrowed a trailer, loaded it all up, and it was wild to see so much that was in my little dining room, all in the trailer, and then getting it in here. It's like, how was that all in my house? Very crazy. So in this episode, I'm going to share a little bit of insight into my transition into commercial. It made me make that move. And then the reality of week one and some thoughts from right here. I'm going to try to keep this episode as tight as I can. My kids are here with me today. They're running around outside. There is every chance that they might step in the background if you are watching on YouTube. But you know me, I love a good tangent, and that might happen. We'll see. We're going to start out by talking about why I made the move to commercial. So when I first began my business, I wasn't necessarily looking to build a business. However, I was looking to earn a full-time income. I was in a season where I was sending resumes left and right, trying to find a unicorn job that fit with our family's weird schedule, and just nothing was working out. And at the same time, I was baking sourdough just as a kind of healing hobby for myself. And that snowballed into a business. And when it looked like that had potential, I threw everything into it. I am an entrepreneur at heart. I love, love, love building a business. And I just had so much fire under me because I needed to bring in that full-time income for the goals of our family that I had to make it work. I was bound and determined to make it work. With that, it worked out of the home until I outgrew it. And then I had a decision to make. I could either cap everything right where I was, and that is a great decision for some people, and just have your ceilings and know what your capacity is and operate right within that capacity. But for me, with where my family is, where the age of our children, the goals for how I want to serve the community, and for the goals of our family and the way that I want to be able to contribute income, it made sense to grow. And the way that our house is set up, it was impossible to continue to use the house to grow any further. So that was the situation that tipped me from home to needing a different option. There are a lot of options that could be explored. A lot of people bake out of like a commissary kitchen just for production and then go and set up at markets or set up for distribution other ways where they're not actually having people come pick up at the same place where they're baking. So that was something I played around with a little bit. There are a lot of options, but I have always wanted to create a space where people can gather. And I wanted a space where not only could I bake, but I could teach workshops. I could have a space where other people could teach workshops. Like I have someone coming in next week to teach a candle making workshop. And I wanted a place where people could just sit and linger. I am a lingerer. I love nothing more than to just sit over coffee and a good pastry and share my heart with a friend, hear a friend's heart. And I wanted to create a space like that. I didn't envision a full-on coffee shop, but I did envision a space for the community. That was my context. Everyone's will be different, but that was why I chose to go from home to full-on commercial versus a production type of facility where I baked somewhere else and then distributed at markets or things like that. So at home, it just wasn't working. I had no more space. My bottlenecks were my fridge, just my prep space was really limited. And then just the mental load of having work at home and shifting those gears, taking up an entire room where we are now homeschooling. And I knew that room would serve us really well if we could set it up as a school room. those were some of the factors that came into play when I made the decision. So with that context, let's talk about week 1. Last week was a true whirlwind. We moved all of the fridges, prep tables, shelves, everything from my home into this new space, and it was just pure chaos for a couple of days. The oven was delivered on Tuesday, I think, maybe Wednesday. It's all a blur. And I haven't told you all which oven I went with. So I went with the Microbakery oven, and I am thrilled. I have not gotten to use it a whole lot yet. Right now, I have crackers in there, and I just pulled granola out. And the one thing that I can say so far is that the evenness of the bake is blowing my mind. In my home oven, I had some hot corners, and so I constantly had to rotate every few minutes. Otherwise, it would bake very unevenly. So even though I had a high capacity in my home oven, it was very hands-on, and that was frustrating. So with my Sourdough, it distributes the heat unbelievably evenly. It's incredible. I noticed it first. The first thing I baked was scones, and they came out just stunning. So incredible. Evenly brown, no hot corners, blew my mind. I did bake a couple of test batches last week, and my dough was not great because my starter's adjusting to the new environment. And then I baked for pre-orders on Saturday. And by then, my dough had kind of leveled out. And those breads, I underproofed the dough a little bit. So not the most perfect representation of the way that my bread should look, but they did come out beautifully. And the ones that got a little bit longer to ferment came out even more beautifully. So I was thrilled. I also did English muffins in the Sourdough, and they came out beautifully. I think this will be probably the recurring theme of just the evenness of the way that it bakes is blowing my mind. I'm still figuring out the temperatures because each deck, you can adjust the temperature for every single deck. And that allows for fine-tuning, and it also just is a little bit of a learning curve. So that's what I'm getting the hang of right now. But overall, incredible. I went with the Microbakery primarily because of 2 reasons. Number 1, it's analog. So there are fewer parts to fail. I tend to go more simple when I'm given the choice versus lots of bells and whistles. There are so many fantastic ovens on the market, and I know that they're all a great choice, but that was one of the really big factors. The second is that it's manufactured by a company that does ovens. They make huge deck ovens for bakeries all over Italy and have been producing ovens for over 60 years. So that, just knowing the history of the company and knowing that they do everything in-house and they know ovens inside and out, gave me a lot of confidence. And so I'm really excited to really get to put this oven through its paces and put a lot of bread through it this week. Next week, I'm going to be putting an insane amount of dinner rolls through it, so I will report back and let you know how that goes. So I'm going to get back on track here. Last week was a whirlwind. Let's start by saying what surprised me. Number 1, I think the emotional shift from home baker to bakery owner has begun to hit a little bit. That first morning, so I started before 4 a.m. on Saturday, and driving into the bakery, I had that moment of, this is me going to work. I drive to work now, and I'm going to clock in, and this is just a totally different experience from baking from home. I feel very heavily the responsibility to curate the experience that customers have when they come in, and that's a big part of my role as a business owner, as bakery owner, as team leader. So as I cultivate a team, I am very aware of how important it is to have the right people in. So that shift, just the emotional shift, the weight of the responsibility, the ownership is interesting. The identity shift, and then the pressure of now it's real. This is really happening. There is no going back. People are showing up to buy their bread. They're asking me the hours. They're asking me the address. They're excited. And this is real. I don't know what I expected, but I don't know that I really expected to be hit so much with just the gravity and reality of the responsibility. I knew and have spent a lot of time thinking about the responsibility because I didn't want to walk into this naively, but it was just that moment driving in on, at 3:45 in the morning on Saturday, where I very consciously was aware that I am in a whole new world now. I still love it, and I'm just getting started. But the excitement, the different energy when I unlock the door to a dedicated baking space, when I walk into the bakery and see the chairs all lined up, and then the silly moment, maybe not silly, but I have been so looking forward to bringing people in to the smells. When people pick up from my porch, they would always remark if I open the door on how good it smelled. And so allowing people to come in and smell the fresh baking bread and treats is so fun. So a lot of people commented on how they could smell it when they walked in, and they could even smell it as they were walking in. And that is exactly one of the things that I've been so excited about. Another thing maybe that surprised me a little bit was that there were people who have never shopped from me, have maybe never even heard of me aside from a Facebook post this week, and they saw my soft opening and came out and supported, and that was really neat. All right, now I'm going to share a little bit of what went well, and then I'm going to share a little bit of what was harder than I expected or what didn't go quite as. So went well. I love having more space. My prep table now is more than double the size of the table that I have been working on, and that part is incredible. So having that space, I feel like it's sparking creativity. It's opening the doors for decision making. I'm very figuring things out, but I can see how soon I will have just a little bit more mental capacity to try new things and say yes to new opportunities within reason. You know me, I love a good no as well. But this new space, this just more expansive space, is opening up creativity and opportunity. What else went really well? Customer response, the community buzz, the way that people are showing up and excited, and they stood in line and were patient with me and my kind of growing pains as I fulfilled their orders on Saturday morning. We'll get into the next part, what didn't go quite as smoothly in a second, but that was really incredible to see these people. Some of them have followed me from the beginning. Some of them have just found me. So it was a mix of long-term loyal customers and brand new customers, as well as some special friends from my women's networking community and things like that. It just felt like it filled my cup. It was really encouraging. And then one other thing that I'm really excited about in this space is that I do not have to close and label every single product. So when people order, I can pull up the cooling rack and pop it in a bag and fulfill their order, and don't have to have everything sealed because I'm not baking from my home. That is quite possibly one of my very favorite parts right now. It just smooths out and cuts out that huge element, that huge amount of time that I was spending on packaging. So that's increasing efficiency in a big way. Now, there will still be products that do need to be packaged. Next week for Thanksgiving pre-orders, the dinner rolls, the breads, the scones, the cinnamon rolls, they will all need to be packaged and given a label with reheating instructions and things like that. But for just the retail walk-ins, I can fulfill those orders so much more quickly. And even the pre-orders, they just came up. I pulled up their order on the Simply Bread app, saw what they had, popped it in a bag, and they were good to go. So really excited about that efficiency. At the end of the day on Saturday, mentally, my list of things that could have been improved was a lot longer than the things that went well. So I have tried to sit and think about what did go really well or what has gone well to lead up to this point, because there is a lot. But it was really easy to identify some of those things that did not go as well. Number one, I vastly underestimated the time that I needed to bake on Saturday morning. I started pickups at 9 a.m. I don't really know why. And I didn't start baking until 4. And my oven had to preheat. And this new oven, while it's incredibly efficient, takes about 90 minutes to preheat. And so I didn't get the first load into the oven until 5:30. And so I was just rotating product all day long until about noon or so, which was not ideal because I was solo. I didn't have anyone else working with me. And so I was jumping back and forth between the register and rotating product in the oven, which was very overwhelming and inefficient. Hopefully Saturday was the last day that will really be like that, and I'll have more support very, very soon, but my new team members just weren't ready to start quite yet. So that was a really big one. I realized I needed to calculate my bake time much more carefully. I don't know what I was thinking, honestly. I typically am very calculated in my bake time. I know how many loaves I can bake for an hour, and I reverse engineer it based on how many loaves I need to bake and calculate when I need to start baking based on that. And I just didn't do that. With all that said, everyone got their order. A handful of people had to wait 5 or 10 minutes for something to come out of the oven. But it was really fun to be able to send people home with warm bread. That's a really neat experience. So that's one of the biggest adjustments. And then just figuring out the rhythm, the new commute, setting boundaries, things like Tuesdays today will, as I settle into the rhythm, these will be my podcast, coaching, email writing, my computer work days. But today, my kids are with me because my husband got an overtime shift. And so that is just setting expectations, setting boundaries, setting rhythms, and just being clear on what day dedicated to what task, or like Mondays are really going to be a rest day for as much as possible. I'll catch up on errands, things that fall on the back burner, and rest and recover before the new week begins again. So that's just going to be an adjustment that my family and I will settle into with time. Another thing that is a challenge, maybe harder than expected, is just the decision fatigue and the number of small setup tasks, all of the little things. The amount of small things that I've had to buy in the last couple of weeks that you don't really think of, like the signs by the sink that say employees must wash hands before returning to work, or little deli papers for grabbing products. Just a whole lot of little things. And so it's been a lot of small decisions, and it's been fun, but also decisions can be really exhausting. And so I'm also, of course, trying to be intentional about having some space for rest too, and just restore my energy. And then I think probably the hardest thing right now is just the mental load of not being fully dialed in yet. I still have a list of things to figure out, to set up, figuring things out like my subscription program using Square. I have spent quite a bit of time on the back end of Square trying to figure it out. Haven't gotten it yet. So if any of you are a genius on using Square for a subscription, you reach out to me. Send me a message on Instagram or something, or an email. I would love to know. So just knowing that there is a long list of things that I feel I don't have a whole lot of time to do is a mental load. Overall, I don't feel burnt out. I don't feel exhausted to the point of frustration, just tired, just normally tired. But I think that is something that maybe we don't realize that we can expect, is that mental load of all the decisions and of knowing that we are not optimized, that we have so much yet to improve and figure out. So that leads us into what I'm learning. And I'll try to keep this tight because this is already getting pretty long. But number one, the importance of setting good rhythms early so that they don't need to be redone or undone, especially as I bring teammates in. So we're in a good situation right now where I don't have processes recorded, but I have a lot of efficient processes that I have developed. So as I bring people in, from the very get-go, we're going to record the processes, and then we can pay attention to how it works in this space, adjust as needed, and optimize right in the beginning. They will always be open to tweak and adjust the processes as needed, but I want to try as much as possible to set the rhythms that serve us well in the very beginning and not just willy-nilly do something halfway to get it done, but do it well from the get-go. And I say I'm learning, and I'll certainly dive much more into this in a future episode, is hiring. This is a huge one because my bakery is so small, but also deeply rooted in the community and exists for a purpose. The person who just wants a fun job at a bakery is usually not going to be the best fit. Whoever comes in and works with me needs to be bought in the purpose here too. Otherwise, this is just a whole lot of work. And pay in food service is not huge either. So hiring is so crucial. I'm learning a lot already about hiring. And so, like I said, I will organize all of what I'm learning and give it a little bit more time before I start really sharing about that. But it's crucial because when people walk in these doors, I want them to feel a certain way, no matter who they're interacting with. And so for that reason, it is so important to have the right people in here. The next thing I'm figuring out is how to balance all the things. So retail, possibly small strategic wholesale accounts. I'm not going huge into wholesale right off the bat because just don't want to take on too much too soon. Balancing workshops, figuring out how to make sure that those fill, how to have the right amount without burning myself out. And then, of course, there's the digital work too. I don't have very much time for this side right now, the podcasts, the emails, the coaching. And so figuring out how to optimize the amount of time that I do have is it's just an interesting thing. I'm learning, figure out what works. And then the other thing that's been on my mind, and I guess this could have gone into the unexpected part too, but it's the mindset required for the messy middle because we're in transition. This is the messy middle. This is where everything feels a little bit unsettled, a little bit chaotic, not fully organized. And that's okay. It is okay for week 1, month 1, quarter 1, year 1 to feel both thrilling and overwhelming. I am feeling elated. I'm so excited. This is so fun. But also, this is really overwhelming. And so I think having space, giving permission to feel all of those things is okay. But also maybe trying to figure out how to get out of the overwhelm quicker rather than stay there too long. Now, as always, when I share, I try to figure out ways to make it relatable for you. So hopefully a lot of this has given you food for thought, maybe giving you an idea of what you can expect, or even just tweaking efficiencies in your home bakery. Maybe it has given you confirmation of, yeah, I'm going to stay in my home. When I hit that ceiling, that is where I want to stay. My family's goals don't need a commercial space. Or maybe you're like, actually, yes, I think we're headed that way. And this will give you some tools and some thoughts and some expectations of what you might face as you go down that. So here's a couple of thoughts for bakers who are considering going the commercial route. The first thing is start preparing your systems long before you're ready to sign your lease. Hopefully you're already doing this. Optimizing your systems, paying attention. I've shared about this many times, but love counting the number of times that I touch a process and figuring out how to eliminate touches. If you are touching your bag, fill it to pick it up, and then you're touching it again to turn it around before you load your product in, turn that whole stack around so that you only have to pick it up once and not turn it around before you load your bread in. You're eliminating a touch. It's as nitty-gritty, silly as that, but those efficiencies just build up. So prepare your systems, optimize, dial in so that you know what to expect. And then once you get into that space, you're not fully reinventing the wheel or fully learning every single process because you already have systems that serve you. The next thing I would say is start building a financial cushion and really understand your numbers. Know your true cost, know your overhead, know your profit margins inside and out. Really pay attention to your numbers and then start saving, setting aside a financial cushion. Everyone's financial context is different, but I will say I am bootstrapping, being super, super scrappy, operating really, really lean, and that brings a different level of stress, but it's not impossible. But the more financial cushion you have, the less stressful it is. So really figure out your numbers, get really clear on them. And then along with your numbers, know your volume and your demand, know how much product in your current context people will purchase, and then start to look into what are the other opportunities. How can you potentially scale? Because you have to be able to scale if you are taking on the overhead of a new space. So dial that in and then get really clear on your brand as well. Who are you? What do you stand for? What do you say yes to? What do you say no to? What do people experience when they interact with you? Make sure that you understand your brand really well so that when you do step into a new space, people have continuity. They can feel that they're interacting with the same brand that they've been interacting with, just in a new context. The next thing is to identify your non-negotiables, your hours that you're going to work, your hours that you're going to rest, your boundaries, your clear yeses and nos, and the needs of your team and how you're going to support your team. What are the boundaries that you set with your team? When do they have to ask you for time off? What can they ask you? Things like that. Just start to think about your non-negotiables. And then the next thing is to expect an adjustment period. Give yourself permission to learn as you go and expect it to feel really uncomfortable, really just awkward and inefficient in certain ways as you figure things out. And finally, this is a little bit of a mindset shift, but think of a commercial kitchen as a tool and not a destination. A commercial kitchen comes with a lot of expenses, a total change in your context. And so it is a way to serve. It gets you, it's just a really big step up in your equipment. It is not the point of arrival because it's getting you to be able to scale, to be able to reach more people, serve more people. So consider and frame your commercial kitchen as a tool and consider why you need that tool. And is that really what you need? And in what context? Whether it's commissary kitchen, whether it's small scale brick and mortar, what I have, whether it's full on like bakery, cafe, they all have different purposes. They all have different financial requirements and ramifications. Like a cafe is going to be an even higher responsibility, just a production bakery, a little retail space like I have. Those are all things to consider. Nothing that you have to have all the answers to right now. But if you do feel like you are headed that direction in the future, whether it's this year, whether it's in 3 years, these are things that you can begin to consider and think about. I hope that's helpful. I feel like this episode maybe has been a little bit scattered, but it's a little insight. It's a little behind the scenes, a peek into what life looks like for me right now. As always, it got longer than I meant to. I planned for a nice, tight little 15 to 20-minute episode. So thanks for bearing with me. But I just want to sum up and say I feel incredibly honored in this new chapter to get to bring this to the community. And I hope to steward it well and share with you in a way that stewards it well too. Because as I am growing, I'm talking to a lot of bakers, an increasing number of bakers who are moving into the commercial space as well. And so while I will continue to support the home baker, and I have well over 100 episodes that you can go back to as well for insight for the home baker, it's really exciting to get to move into this next chapter as well. And so I just feel honored and this little bit of healthy pressure to hold both well and continue to show up because you all know how I feel about the home baker. We play such an important role in our local economies and our local food systems. So I hope this is encouraging for the bakers who are dreaming about maybe this being their next step. This happened faster than I thought it would. So if something happens that maybe begins to open a door, consider that maybe you are the one for the task and maybe you can do this and maybe you can do it sooner than maybe you thought possible. But also, if there's resistance, if you feel like it's not the right time, you don't need to force it either because it is a big step. It is a really big step. So anyway, I'm so thankful for you that you're here taking some time, letting me be in your ears for a little bit. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. Make sure you follow the show, whether you're listening on an audio platform or following on YouTube. Hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you take a moment to write a review, that always makes my day too. It helps other people find the show and it just helps us all grow thriving businesses together. So I will be back soon with another episode, but until then, happy baking.